This is the Inferno Podcast, the official podcast of UAB Athletics. Blazer fans, it's a place each week to get the inside look at all things UAB. This episode of the Inferno Podcast is presented by Pearl River Resorts. Want to get away? Go to pearlriverresort.com to learn more. Yo, welcome back to the Inferno. He is Mark Ingram, the UAB Athletic Director. My name is Tony Curry. Trent Dilfer off this week. Casey Dunn's going to join us a little later on the show. I actually got a chance to get my feet wet with him a little bit a couple weeks ago on the coach's chair, and absolutely love having him on. So just a wonderful man. We're going to have him on just a few minutes, and of course, it is game week.
It is.
You have prepared yourself. I don't know definitively how many exact days it's been since the last time UAB played a football game, but it's been a while. You've done all this preparation. You're in Trent Dilfer's second year, and can you unequivocally say, okay, all my T's are crossed and all my I's are dotted?
You can never completely say that, Tony. But I think we're as ready as we're going to be. You prepare for all this other stuff outside the game, right? Coach Dilfer and his staff are working on the game plan and all that kind of thing, training, eating right, strength training in the off season, all this kind of thing, injury prevention, you name it. But there's all this other stuff, right? How is parking being communicated? Are there any new adjustments to how we tailgate? Any rules we need to communicate that to our fans? Things that have changed. Is the Blazer Walk happening at the same time? Which it is. But things like that. We have moved the student tailgate area this year, which I'm excited about. I think it's going to put our students in a position to be a lot more involved. Mm-hmm. They had a great scene, but it was over in front of the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, but now in front of the Uptown restaurants, there was kind of a empty zone of space that we worked with the BJCC on, and they're out there now, which is great. I think they like that. I think they're going to feel more involved. So again, anyway, all those things are good. Blazer Village, always a lot of fun for kids, and so our Learfield IMG team, which is Blazer Sports Properties, they are working hard on that, and so you got all these other little things, and then communication to your suite holders, communication to your club seat holders, which is all a little different than every other fan. I mean, it's all some similar, but not the same information, right? And then just getting everybody's tickets out, and just there's a million little details that can fall apart.
Today's episode of the Inferno always brought to you by Legacy Credit Union. Legacy Credit Union, the official credit union of UAB. We're going to have, of course, the Coach's Corner coming up. Your special guest Casey Dunn, just a few minutes, and also this week in Blazers Athletics. As we record this show, we've already had a top 10 team go down in college football.
Crazy.
I've got to get your thoughts. Well, and again, this is why we do this.
That's why
we break down games. And again, you got FSU coming off a 13-0 season. We know what happened against Georgia, getting beat by 60. I don't think anyone thought that they'd lose the first game as a top 10 team. Mike Norville, I think, a great coach. Obviously, he's gotten better wins every single year. But the great thing about what he's done, and it's really not great if you think about it, but he's still got the whole schedule in front of him. They got 12 teams making the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
If it was 4 teams, we could pretty much say you're done.
Yep.
And now we know that if you end up winning the ACC, you got an automatic bid. But just talk about what we saw there. And
it was a great football game.
Yeah.
Right? Did you watch the game?
Absolutely.
Great football game. I'm so happy for Georgia Tech to have been able to come out and play the way that they did. They looked really tough on defense, which a lot of people didn't think they would. They had the number 1 ranked rushing game in the ACC last year. So they had the number 1 rushing offense in the ACC a year ago. And, opening drive, Florida State gets it and does what you think they're going to do. And, of course, they've got this quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, who I'm sure I said his name wrong. But
you got it.
I got close.
You got it right.
Clemson, Oregon State, now Florida State. And they sort of did what you thought they would do, right? They just took the ball and kind of methodically went down, 8 plays or something, drive and touchdown, poof. And then they do kind of a trick play on the extra point to get a 2-point conversion. And I'm thinking,
very nice.
Boy, this is going to be something here. This is going to be a mess. Then Georgia Tech gets a ball, and it's like they go first play, 15 yards, second play, 9 yards, third play, 42 yards. And it's like, well, who is this? And then, made it obviously a great football game. And, for a kid to make a field goal at the end of the game, I mean, that's like the walk-off home run that Coach Dunn, sees his team do about every other game. Walk-off home run for a victory, kind of grand slam feeling. it's like this incredible moment for the kid and for the team and for their fan base. And my guess is, and not to speak for Florida State, but I've been on their side of it. You're just totally shell-shocked. Mm-hmm. And the longer Georgia Tech hung in that game, the more their confidence grew and the more sort of question came into the minds of the Florida State players. And there's this weird psyche that starts to shift.
Well, you have to start wondering, you're in Dublin, Ireland. Does that have something to do with it? We have some travel issues. I mean, all those different things.
Who knows?
You had a cat that hit a 52 and a 59-yarder for FSU, obviously, and set some
bombs.
records. I mean,
right.
You're right. For the first game of the year, a lot of fun to watch. It was a lot of fun to watch. Yeah. It was fantastic. Now, game week this week against Alcorn State. Team was 7-4 last year, 6-2 in the SWAC.
Yep.
Nothing to sneeze at by any stretch of the imagination.
Great history.
But going into this game, speaking of history, what do you expect from a football team like that?
Yeah, I mean they have a proud history and tradition. This is not a lay down team. This is a team that has had players like Steve McNair, who are all time greats, play there, and they expect to win. Right? They had a good season last year, and they expect to have another good season this year. So it's certainly not some gimme situation. It's certainly, it's unfortunate that certain fans start to think, I got this pushover game. There's no such thing as a pushover game, right? No. I mean, look, I'm telling you, Florida State, generally speaking, I remember watching College Game Day in the morning, every single one of those guys picked Florida State, right? And except for there was one guy from Ireland who, because Georgia Tech has an Irish punter, he picked Georgia Tech. He's a professional wrestler, and he's the only one that got the game right. But the point is, there are upsets all the time, right? Montana State beat somebody over the weekend, and that wasn't expected. And
you're looking at a cat
SMU almost lost to Nevada. I mean, Nevada had that game and gave it away.
You're looking at a guy that had Georgia Tech. Just saying.
Who?
I did.
There's a bunch of people past you over here, Tony.
I've got documentation. If you want to look it up, I got
Engineer Molly claiming it now. Give me a break.
Exactly. There is videotape out there on our YouTube channel. Check out Tony Curry Radio along with Mark
Ingram. I gotta watch every single one of your podcasts.
No, just the last one, my friend.
The one about
see me saying Georgia Tech coming off a winning season. I love that Brandon Key kid. I love that coach coming back to his alma mater. It's a great story. It's a great story. And quite frankly, I think a lot of people, it had a little bit of a smelly fish feel to it. Okay, wait a minute. Florida State, they lose their quarterback. They were 13-0. It's just amazing the fact that team looks so much different. I realize that, but he's been with a couple other squads. But, I mean, there's a reason why Clemson took Klubnik over Uiagalelei.
Klubnik's good. He did not have a good year last year. He was, the year before, had kind of this incredible finish to their season, which is why DJ left to begin with. And I assume he left Oregon State because the whole Pac-12 dissolved.
He will be on the bench after Boston College.
You think so? Mm-hmm. Why? What did he do wrong?
I just don't think he's come along as quickly as
he was 19 of 27.
I think he was ballyhooed. I think a lot of people thought a lot about him. And quite frankly, I don't think he's had the same coach long enough to actually get good enough to be that quarterback.
Well, that's a good point. Who
he's
knows?
Just bounced around all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not talking about from one city. I'm talking about from one side of the country to the other.
But he's started everywhere he's been.
He has.
I mean, he's doing something right.
Yeah. And he's still got time to transfer. He can do that 7-year plan.
Again? Can't transfer in the middle of the season.
Well, sure. Oh, is that a rule you can't do? Is that
I
one
don't
rule?
know.
Are you sure you cannot transfer in the middle of the season? I think you probably can.
Maybe you can.
Casey Dunn's going to join us here in a few minutes. Trent Dilfer off this week. Andy Kennedy will also be joining us. My son, my oldest son is a huge football fan, a UAB football fan. Of course, he just tried to draw him off at Clemson, and just like, and he's going to try to come in for the game. And then my other son is a huge basketball fan, and he wants to know when Andy's going to be on the show. And I said, he'll be on in a couple of weeks. And so he wants to come up and actually meet Andy. And I know, we'll talk about that. Let's talk a little bit more before we bring Casey in.
I want to know if DJ Uiagalelei were interested in transferring to UAB as a pitcher, would Casey Dunn take him?
That's a great tease. Nice job.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's be the first question we ask Casey when he comes on. This week in Blazer Athletics, we know, obviously, it's game week. What else is going on with the green and gold?
Man, we had a soccer game last week against number 6 North Carolina, our men's soccer team. We had a great crowd. Man, our team played great. We have a brand-new coach in this guy, David Lilly, and we were so aggressive. We controlled the ball. I was so impressed. We did lose 1-0. I'm going to tell you, man, I don't know enough about soccer, but to speak intelligently, which is why I shouldn't, but I'm going to. There was a penalty. I'm telling you, 10 feet in front of the goalie. We got called for a penalty 10 feet in front of the goalie. This dude took a free kick that a 3-year-old that's never seen a ball in their life could have made this goal, and it was just so upsetting.
I hate free kicks.
Right?
I don't understand. Listen, this is not going to be. It's not an anti-soccer show here.
Right.
I know it's bigger than it's ever been, so it's fine. That's great. But, I mean, I don't understand the free kick, and I sure as heck don't understand the extra time, and there's never a clock running, so I don't even know when they finish. But that's neither here nor there. But you hate to lose a game like that.
You hate to lose a game like that, and it was so close. And I wouldn't want to tie either. You know, I've told our coaches I'd rather see us line up our team against their team in a sack race and see who could get to the other end first than to have a tie.
Yeah.
But we were really close. Anyway, the point is, you ought to come see David Lilly and our men's soccer team, and we've got a great women's team too, led by Lisa Mann. So I'm excited. Anyway, that's happened this past week, and we got a couple more games this week. Volleyball is starting their first games this week, their first actual countable games. They had an exhibition this past Friday night, and they're looking to bounce back and be a lot better too. I'm excited about the fall season.
Pearl River Resort brings the show to you, the Inferno, every single week, and of course brought to you again by the Legacy Credit Union folks that do wonderful work. Legacy Credit Union, the official credit union of UAB.
Are you getting sacked by monthly fees on your checking account? Trent Dilfer here, head coach of the UAB Blazers. Legacy Credit Union's everyday checking account can get you back in the game. No minimum balance, no monthly fees, and get paid up to 2 days early. Check out LegacyCreditUnion.com for more information and apply today. Legacy, the official credit union of UAB.
Along with Mark Ingram, the UAB Athletic Director, Game Week, I'm Tony Curry. Now it's time to bring in our first guest here in the Inferno. Our
Ladies and gentlemen,
it is Casey.
Welcome, Coach Casey.
Yeah, baby. I mean, it is game week, so
ready for the first pitch.
Trent's just a little busy. I actually had you on Mark's show several weeks ago, and you were fantastic. This is like you mentioned Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
When you do really well and stand up, you're welcome to come to the couch.
Yeah.
So you did well enough on your first time.
My ratings, but I assume is a lot higher than Mark's.
Usually,
you did very well. Okay. And first of all, get right on that microphone. Don't make me have to teach you how to do this. You know, you've done enough of these. You know
usually I yell loud enough. People don't need me to get close to the mic.
Casey, what's going on, man? You doing all right?
Not much, man. Doing good.
His dad coached football, so some of that's probably rubbed off on Casey. He could talk about the games whenever.
People would tell you I got an opinion about anything, so I can give you my 2 words.
That's all you want to know is what I think.
That's what we expect. What did you want to ask him? You had a question?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here you go, Casey. We've got DJ Uiagalelei, who started out his career at Clemson as a quarterback. Then he transfers to Oregon State. Now he's the starting quarterback, where he started, had a good year, and now is the starting quarterback at Florida State. If at the end of this season he wished to transfer to UAB as a pitcher, do you take him?
Well, considering he ended Clemson's run of dominance when he became their quarterback, he lost the only 2 games of relevance in the pack to Washington and Oregon, right? Because really there's no other 2 teams that were in that league, which is why the league's no more.
Yeah.
And now he's 0-1 at Florida State against a mediocre to below average ACC team. I don't know if winning's in his nature, man.
You've answered the question.
No offense to the young man. I hope he's going to be great, but his track record's not one of success right now.
He's like 6'5". He's a big old kid.
Plus, I couldn't spell his name on the lineup card anyway, so that would be bad luck.
You just have to make sure you say ooh-ee at the beginning. If you say ooh-ee,
I'd like
then
to see you arguing with an umpire about him. That'd be fun.
That probably would be. Casey Dunn in the Coach's Corner joins us right here, of course, brought to you by Pepsi and Viva Health. Pepsi and Viva Health are great sponsors here on the Inferno. Casey, I know you are a baseball guy, obviously, but you love some college football. You saw a top 10 go down this past week, and just talk a little bit about it. I know you're just kind of kidding about ooey. But there are some guys, it seems like it's Tim Tebow is that guy, right? Tim Tebow comes in and wins a playoff game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, there's some guys that are just winners. No matter what happens, they put themselves in a position to make the plays or to win ball games, and it may not have anything to do with them. My old radio partner Jay Barker, I think, was like 7 of 12 in the national championship game, and they won by 20 against the Miami Hurricanes. Talk about that, and what makes a difference between a guy who's just a winner and then that guy who seems like he busts his ass all the time but just can't seem to get over the hump.
I think the saying winners win and losers lose is true in a lot of ways. You know, you look at guys who are successful on the field, they're usually pretty good at whatever they do. You know, if it's playing baseball, football, playing ping pong, playing horse in the backyard with their kids, they usually win. Mm-hmm. You know, so I think there's something to it. But, you know, you just mentioned about just not just you playing well in big moments, but being able to get the others around you to play well. And I think that's the biggest thing is when you talk about guys that are just human nature, they're always around winning teams. They're usually the ones that find some way to help the others do their job. You know, you mentioned Jay. Jay was smart enough to stay out of the game, let those other guys do their job, you know, just kind of let them handle it, you know, and there's something to be said for that other than the guy that just tries to take control, do too much sometimes. But you know, there's a lot of truth. You know, I don't think there's any doubt, man, and even in my world with recruiting, you always rather take a kid from a winning program, you know, that they've seen it. They know what it's about, and I think it translates.
I'm a big college baseball guy, but I'm also a big Major League Baseball fan. I don't know if my Cincinnati Reds are going to make it to the end. They were supposed to, and then obviously they're not going to make any trade. But they just don't do that. They're too cheap. But Aaron Judge, that guy is having a season again, and I think he's only the 5th or 6th player to ever have 3 different seasons with 50-plus home runs. And as this taping goes, I think he's got 51 or 52. Can you just talk about just from a Major League Baseball level, because I know you've been at all different levels, but just talk about what he's doing and just how incredibly important it is.
But one is, I mean, it has to be the quietest 51 home runs I've ever seen.
Unbelievable.
You know, he's really not getting a lot of attention. I think that's a testament to how great he is. People really don't think anything special of it. It's just what the guy does at this point. But, you know, it's amazing. You look at his spray charts. Hits balls out to right field, to left field, to center field. It doesn't matter. You know, there's a guy on Twitter that tried to attack him about, you know, all you have to do is throw a ball in, and then somebody puts a heat mat out and all the home runs he's hit on that pitch. So there's just really no way to attack him. And
yeah, you can make that argument, too, because a lot of people are talking about their porch at the Yankees, but he's not hitting them all over the porch.
No, well, and two, most of his home runs don't barely clear the fence either. No. You know, I don't think it matters. But, you know, he's just a massive human, you know, and it's amazing, you know, for people who've never had a chance to get down on a major league field and just see how big and how physical and how strong those guys are. It's unbelievable. You know, I think that's one of the best things that I've done as a coach is trying to get the ability to get down there, because you think, you know, the guys we have, oh, man, he's got great power. He's got this, he's got that. And then when you put yourself on the field with him, you're like, whoa, this guy's different.
I've heard people say that about us, though, at your games.
Yeah.
About us.
About what? About how we're a lot smaller than those guys? You know, that's the thing. I wish we had some of those guys right now, but it is, you know, it's amazing. When you talk about the superstars, they're just different. You know, there's a lot of guys in the big leagues that don't really do anything special, and they've just had, you know, good opportunity. They've caught a break. Things have worked out. But when you talk about the guys that are in the All-Star game, guys putting up records, those guys are just special.
I was doing a show on Tony Curry Radio earlier today, and we were talking about transfers in Texas in football. There's 849,000 student athletes in the state of Texas, playing all games. 15,000 transfers this year alone are either going to move into Texas or move from one school to the next in Texas so they can play for a bit. And it's going to 4 different teams. And so obviously the Scholastic folks down in Texas are like, whoa, hold on a second. This transfer, and usually less than 1% are told they're ineligible. There used to be a 1-year rule where you had to sit out for a year. That went away several years ago. And then I started thinking to myself, you know, I'm sitting there watching, you know, ESPN and watching high school football the other night. I'm going, man, what are we doing here? And then, of course, the Little League World Series. These kids are 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, it seems like. And we're putting their favorite bands and their favorite celebrities up on, and they're on television high-fiving each other. And it's just, and then I was talking to a friend of mine who actually played collegiately for McNeese State, and he was talking about they're wearing these kids' arms out. They're just burning these kids up. Can you talk a little bit about what do you see, or what have you seen over the last 5 to 10 years? Is there anything different? We got kids now who are getting the surgery,
the Tommy John
surgery before they're even leaving high school, because they know they're going to be stronger for it. Can you talk a little bit about what's?
Man, I think the biggest thing is just the year-round activity. You know, it's not so much in the summer, I don't think. You know, when I grew up, you know, I remember I missed the first week of school several times in elementary school because we were still playing. You talk about the Little League World Series. Well, you know, that's a system where you have to win to advance to the next round. You have to win that to advance. To me, that's healthy. That's good. You know, the problem you have in the summer is you have a quote, World Series, a championship, a state something every weekend. So, you know, if you lose, it's not a big deal. I get to play for another championship next week. And you look up, I mean, I'll never forget, my son played 4 games in a day when he was like 10 years old. And one of the other parents goes, "Did you ever play 4 games in a day?" I was like, "Man, I've never played 3 games in a day. Like, this is crazy."
Right.
And I think when you boil it down, it's not so much how many days or that kind of, it's the amount of games they play at one time. And it's nonstop. It's carrying over into the fall, into the winter. You know, and to me, the summer is when you're supposed to play baseball. Now, so let's play a bunch in the fall, let's play some in the spring, a little bit in June, then now we got to get to the beach in July. And you look at it, and there's not much youth activity in our area.
Is it ending careers early?
I don't think it's necessarily ending careers because surgery is so successful, as sad as that is. You know, we get a lot of kids that come into our program who had surgeries before they get to us. And in some ways, I'm like, all right, good. He's got it out of the way. You know, he'll be healthy for 4 years. But I do think it runs people out because it's so much of a time commitment. Baseball is a game of failure. You know, I was talking about soccer earlier. I mean, again, soccer, you can run around for 2 hours, never touch the ball, and feel like you played well because nobody knows if you did anything bad because, like y'all said, we don't know what it is. You know, you just run in a circle. Hey, great job, Johnny. But, you know, in baseball, you strike out. You have balls
score
hit
and
to
defend.
You. Yeah, well,
you do score and defend.
Sometimes they score, but a lot of times
It's
they don't.
the opportunity. It's the opportunity to score.
Yeah, it's like, you know, when you look in a write-up and it talks about shots on goal, when that's the highlight, that means nobody made one.
Yeah.
But we still can celebrate the kid that ran up and down the sidelines and never touched the ball. But, you know, in baseball, you fail. You know, even in football, you know, you can be a lineman. Nobody knows if you miss the block or not half the time. You know, in basketball, you just pass the ball. You never have to shoot. In baseball, you're on center stage. Like, you can't hide from it. The ball's going to be hit to you. You've got to go to the plate. So it's a game of failure. And I think that's the hardest thing for young kids and why they do run to some other sports sometimes because kids cry. You know, you go to a Little League park, man, you're going to see kids crying. You have to console them. You have to teach them how to fail. And I think that's why it is the game that's such a good life giver, you know, lesson giver, because you got to learn to fail. I
agree with you. I'm tell you something. We were living in Philadelphia before we came here, and a parent talked us into letting our son Charlie wrestle. And where I grew up in Virginia, our high school was great at wrestling, but I didn't wrestle. I just had not grown up doing it. And I was like, I don't know. But I remember there were all these guys that I played with in college that were great wrestlers, and they were all great players on our team. And I thought, okay, well, he's like 7. And they talked me into this, and his singlet was baggy. That's how small he was. We go to this thing, and you know, I'm asking this other mom, my wife Amy, she went with me, and so I asked this other mom, you know, what do you think about your kids wrestling? And I knew she would say, oh, I hate it. And she says, it's my favorite sport. I said, what? And she said, wrestling is about life. And I said, all right. She says, it's just you. It's you on the mat with somebody else. Nobody else dropped the ball. Nobody else missed a tackle. Nobody else struck out. It's you and them. And if you lose, guess what? You got another match in 30 minutes. So you got to suck it up, regroup, and go get ready for the next match. And she goes, and that's what life is about. And I was like, so we signed him up, you know, and then we are, you know, signed him up. But it was absolutely what you just said. I think there were great life lessons in it. He lost every match, I think, in 3 years. But no, he didn't. But anyway, it was interesting. We went into the first match, and I'm telling you, there was a room low ceiling like this, and there was a mom laying on the mat, slapping her head, 5-year-old kid on the mat, and she's going, rip his head off, rip it. My wife's over here crying. Smoke in the room, people betting, holding up wads of cash. It was crazy. It was fun. It was
sounds like a Chinese chicken fight.
It was very similar. Very similar.
At our high school, Lakota High School, they won state championships almost every year in wrestling.
Yeah.
And so if you went to Lakota, you were going to wrestle in some aspect. And so in PE, we would have like a 3-month period where all we did at PE, instead of playing dodgeball and stuff, we had to wrestle.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to wrestle, but we had to find out if there was, you know,
we had that
for
in
talent, right?
They were searching for
wrestling.
talent. And of course, they're like, Tony, why don't you're 5'11", why don't you go out there? And I was like, I don't want to hold on to. So I had a Mike Moore. I can never forget the guy, Mike Moore, and we'd always wrestle. And I said, I'm just going to hold on to you, hold on to me. We're just going to lay there. And so I just held on to over 10 minutes.
How long is this? We took a nap.
I think we were reading each other's stories and stuff. Coach's Corner brought to you by Pepsi and Viva Health. Our hot topic today, I want to get into walk-up songs. I saw Kamala Harris there at the DNC. We don't talk politics around here, but she has had the permission of Beyonce to use the song Freedom She's also used some Mary J. Blige stuff. Of course, Donald Trump, whenever he wants to use anyone's music, they tell him to stop.
Except Kid Rock.
Except for Kid Rock. And Ted Nugent. He can use any music from those two, and they're going to love him for it. But Fleetwood Mac, Paul McCartney, he's not allowed to use the music. And so I was going back to the 70s, and I saw a story about the Alan Parsons Project, the song Sirius. Of course, that's the Chicago Bulls song they used. The guy who was doing the voice work for that actually heard that song at a bar and was like, man, this would be great to have the Chicago Bulls come out to this particular song. Michael Jordan signed off on it. The rest is history. Mm-hmm. And then you go through Ricky Vaughn.
Wild Thing.
Yeah. I mean, you just think of great walk-up songs.
What was your walk-up music?
So I want some of your walk-up songs.
I mean, I came in at the beginning days of the walk-up song.
Yeah.
So in college, you really
ain't been
didn't
around
have
forever.
one.
Yeah.
Now, my first year in pro ball was the first time I was ever asked about my walk-up song, and I was like, I don't know, but I was a big WWF fan. Not WWE, that's the fake stuff.
Right.
I was back when it was WWF, and it was real, right?
Yeah.
So my walk-up song was Steve Austin, Stone Cold.
Yeah.
And I literally stood in the on-deck circle till the glass shattered, and then I made my move to the plate at that point. And I'll be honest with you, it was a crowd favorite.
I appreciate
the theatrics.
I like the theatrics there, Casey.
Yeah, so I put thought into it. You kind of had to delay, make sure you heard the shatter, and then you could move on up. Thought it was pretty good.
I love that.
I've been dying. I tried to get Charlie, my son, to play the Lumberjack by Jackal. I always thought that would be such good walk-up music. I think it'd be good for a pitcher or a hitter. I think
that would be good. Yeah, you're good.
Great song. Nobody plays it. That was, that used to be on the old Rush Limbaugh show. He played that song a lot. Man, it's a good song.
I'll tell you the biggest crowd favorite from when I played, though. You'll have to tell me with who sang it because I'm terrible with music. But was the old Hanging Tough. It was like one of the little boy band groups.
Yeah.
Was that New Kids on the Block?
Kids on the Block,
were they Hanging
yeah.
Tough?
Yeah, but it was.
I think they were
that was
tough.
a crowd clapping, and you'd get the whole stadium in on that one. That was probably the fan favorite during my era.
All right, you're coming into the stadium there, Mark. What would be your walk-up?
I just told you, the Lumberjack, Jackal.
You do Lumberjack?
100%.
All right.
Never heard of that, so when you air this, Tony, we got to make sure we fuse that in.
Make sure we have licensing to play Lumberjack. And of course, I've had Bad to the Bone. Bad to the Bone's been my walk-up song for a long period of time because I am telling the bone, so it's Bad to the Bone. But and it's a great walk-up song too, just the way the guitar starts and stuff. But it's fantastic. Case, thank you so much for coming by. Don't be a stranger, man. Come by and see us again.
Anytime, man.
Love having you on. Of course, for Mark Ingram, this show of course airs every single week wherever you get your favorite podcast. We're available on every major indice. You can also check us out on Tony Curry Radio. Get the TKR app, and you can hear all of our shows. We do a ton of shows, and of course, the show, The Inferno, airs every single week. Trent Dilfer will be back in the studio coming up next week, and then Andy Kennedy. There you go.
Mm-hmm. A chainsaw action?
Yeah.
When was the last time you had a chainsaw in your hand?
2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah, man. I get out in the yard and do stuff. These are not the hands of a banker, Tony.
You trimming some bushes, were you? I don't believe you. For the guys, this is the Inferno and the UAB Blazers. Go Blazers. I'm Tony Curry. Have a great day. This is the Inferno Podcast, the official podcast of UAB Athletics. Blazer fans, it's a place each week to get the inside look at all things UAB. This episode of the Inferno Podcast is presented by Pearl River Resorts. Want to get away? Go to pearlriverresort.com to learn more.
The if in life, it's a world of possibilities. If you go for a night out with friends, if you can keep an eye on your money along the way, if you know you have overdraft protection with no fee transfers from savings, when you get a low balance alert, it's easier to say yes to fun. If that sounds good, try Regions Life Banking.
Stay ready for the if in life. Regions Bank embrace the if in life.